how PepsiCo leverages AI to maximize creative effectiveness. With that, you climb up on stage, and welcome to the stage.
Hi everybody. What marketers are asked for since decades and even more today is to maximize the effectiveness of their campaigns and to increase the efficiency of their budgets to finally deliver more sales or contribute to sales results. And it's the insights teams and the insight expert task to identify the right tools, the right methodology and platforms to help the marketing teams achieve that goal. And coming from that, Sarah and I, we will talk about how PepsiCo leverages AI to maximize creative effectiveness at scale on the BrainSuite platform. So that's so much like basically for the introduction of what we're talking about, but probably, Sarah, might be a good idea if we introduce yourselves, right? Would you like to start?
Sounds good. Hi everybody, I'm Sarah Pichardo. I'm from the PepsiCo Labs team. We're the tech venturing and innovation arm within PepsiCo. We work across the entire organization to identify different business needs, and then we scout for emerging technology to help solve those problems.
And I'm Julia Zasvito. I'm Chief Marketing Officer with Empower, who actually provides PepsiCo and more than 500 other brands with the platform where they can evaluate the effectiveness of the creative assets of any type at scale and at high speed. All of this informed by neuroscience and enabled by artificial intelligence. But let's start from the beginning. Our joint journey actually started back in 2021, end of 2021, but we, as back then a small startup, pitched to PepsiCo Labs. By today, PepsiCo is using AI-powered evaluation for shopper marketing at global scale, over 25 countries and in over 14 languages. But the question is, how did we reach that point? And it was, I think, very clear to all of us when we started that journey. There's a lot of new in there. So we have AI, it's a new technology. We have a self-service platform, that means new processes, new organization, and we have the neuroscientific part, which actually is also kind of a new thinking and new methodology. So always when there's a lot of new in things, one has to make sure that this is handled like a change management process. And to make a change management process, which actually aims at changing the behavior of people, using a new system, using a new methodology, if you want to ensure that this runs successfully, you have to respect certain key aspects. And referring to the behavioral design model of BJ Fogg, there are like 3 key pillars. So one, I think that's very clear. You have to really solve for an important need and pain. Then you have to find a solution that actually is also easy to use. And all of this is not enough, so triggering and nudging the team to use a solution, to get used to it, is also key to successful adoption. But luckily, the PepsiCo Labs process is actually designed to do that.
So our process mirrors a lot of that change management innovation process that Julia just highlighted. First, we always start with the need. So we work with the business, with our leadership, as well as different users to really understand those needs of the business. We put that into very clear briefs, and then we work with our external ecosystem, network of VCs, other companies, other innovators, to really discover a number of different solutions that might be able to solve those problems. And then we actually help to rapidly pilot those solutions within the organization, making it very easy for us to be able to test new technology, working with legal, IT, number of other different teams to make that process very, very simplest and seamless. And then from there, after we run a pilot, we have very clear KPIs, and we look at the clear results to decide whether or not we want to continue to partner with the solution, and we start to negotiate what that partnership looks like. Our team, sometimes we take an equity investment, sometimes it's much more of a commercial agreement, but we see what's the right fit for our organization and for our partnership so that we can take that business to the next level. And then we help to scale that solution globally. So this is a little bit of that process, and as you can see, it follows very clearly that step-by-step process that Julia had mentioned earlier. First we start with the need, then we look at the solution fit, and then we introduce those different triggers that can help to build that change management process across the organization. So deep diving into the need and where we all started, right? So as you all know, our shoppers, when they walk into a store, they are confronted with so many different options, right? And there's so many different products, so many different messages that they're bombarded with. And so what we're looking for is a way for us to be able to cut through the noise and to really maximize that shopper marketing once we get into the store. So how can we increase that ROI? We have a ton of different brands. We have a lot of different messages that we need to be able to say to our consumers. And so we need to make sure that we're really maximizing that shopper marketing ROI. Another thing that we're looking for is we're looking for scalable tools. Because we do have so many different brands and we've built some great best practices, some global best practices, we need to be able to figure out what are those different ways that we can now start to scale those global best practices across the organization. And then the third thing that we're looking for is we're looking for a solution that can help us make fast decisions and help us to be able to reduce any type of bottlenecks. So that's the reason why we started to look into the solution with BrainSuite and Julia, and we were really excited about what we found. So within this process, just kind of double clicking on that overall process and looking at the solution, we first started, as I had mentioned, with the briefing, looking at a number of different solutions that might be able to solve this problem. We also looked at a number of other different solutions within the same set. So we looked at over 200 different solutions. From there, we evaluated a number of them, had different conversations with them, and then we identified 9 that we wanted to actually introduce to our senior leadership. We introduced them to senior leadership, we had those conversations, and we selected 5 that we decided to actually go forward with and pilot. We had very clear KPIs that we started from the beginning to determine which of the solutions we actually wanted to go forward with and scale. So we collected user feedback, we looked to understand what are the different ease of use, how easy it is for our different teams to start to bring on this tool. We also did a pre and post optimization consumer test where we actually did the test with AI, looked at those results, we then compared it to an actual consumer study, and we were able to see how the AI was very predictive of that consumer results. So we were able to confirm that accuracy, and we were also able to confirm the uplift in purchase intent and overall the uplift of the results. The third thing that we did was we did a technical assessment with our teams, looking at the actual technology, doing a deep dive to really understand how the tool is being used, the different AI, how it's being applied, to make sure that we're using the right technology. And then finally, ultimately looking at those pilot results and the financial evaluation. So I'll pass it over to Julia now to talk a little bit more about the solution itself and how it's been fitting the needs of PepsiCo.
Yeah, so you might be very curious to see a little bit more about the solution that has gone through that very sound process. But one step back, so as Sarah also mentioned, now we have a very special situation in store and at the point of sale and in shopper marketing. There's a lot of opportunity because actually over 80% of the decisions are just taken in store. And we also know that effective advertising can increase sales by up to 65%. But we also all know there are a lot of challenges. So over 10,000, in some stores over 40,000 of items in the store, shoppers extremely under time pressure. The categories are quite often low involvement, to be honest. So what this means is that they're actually probably between 1.5 and, if you are lucky, 3 seconds to finally drive a response and get a reaction, which then again means that if we're addressing shoppers, we have to address their autopilot, right? This is not a conscious decision. And to effectively address a consumer's or a shopper's autopilot, we have to understand how the human brain works from the point where you get attention to understanding. And this actually then translates into key factors. So you have to stand out in that crowded marketplace. Be very clear and easy to understand. It has to create emotional activation and deliver for sure a compelling benefit. And last but not least, that's very clear, it needs to be strongly connected to your brand with an immediate brand recognition. So these are the key factors, and what the solution actually does is that we have translated how the human brain works, or the shopper brain, and those key factors into AI tools. And I will not dive too deep here because it's rather complex, but by employing multiple multimodal neural networks trained on over 1 billion data points from human behavioral research, including things like real eye tracking data to deliver predicted attention at a very high grade of accuracy, or even we've trained the system to develop a semantic understanding based on millions and millions of human-generated image tag pairs and much more. And what's also important, all of this and the norms and the metrics are benchmarked on a global level against over 2 million creative assets. And all of this came together in the platform and within the tools. And yeah, you've mentioned it sounds a little bit complex, and it actually is. It's deep tech. But what's super important, and when we're coming to like what you remember maybe from that scheme I showed, it must be very easy to use. So from the user perspective, does not need to like understand all of this, but the only thing they have to do, those shopper marketing teams and insight teams, is just upload their assets and even the environment where the asset might be placed in store. It could also be a digital environment. Then give a very short briefing, including things like the brand name. What is the asset type? What is the communication objective? And finally, mark so-called areas of interest like important elements, iconic brand assets, price tags, or valuators. That's all, 1 minute. And then after, actually, on an average, 2 to 3 minutes, they get all the actionable insights back. So scored, very detailed insights directly on the platform, and even full reports for download and to share with their stakeholders in high speed. So you see some excerpts here, what that looks like. It also goes even deeper. But what is also important, besides the detailed results, is to have all the assets and the creative data, the metrics and the measurements in one place to actually allow overarching analysis across brands, across regions, identifying best practices, and therefore being able also to do a correlation analysis between those effectiveness drivers and actual in-market results. So that was a glimpse of the solution, and as we've talked about in the beginning, a great solution and a strong pain, but still it needs something else to go on, and I think I can just hand over to you.
Amazing. So something that we had mentioned is that we were actually able to scale this across all of the sectors within PepsiCo. We did that within 9 months. So we did that very quickly across a global organization, which, as you all know very well, I'm sure, it's not an easy feat. But this element of triggers was a big reason why we were able to do that so effectively. So I want to kind of walk through some of those big pillars as to how we actually did this and kind of what were those main triggers that helped to drive that global adoption. First and foremost, we looked at tangible results and we built a business case off of it. So we did multiple different pilots, multiple different studies with consumers, as well as with the AI, and we were able to understand what that actual purchase intent, what that actual uplift was, and we built a business case around it so that we could bring that to our leadership and we can show them just how much value we're able to drive when we can increase the ROI of our shopper marketing assets. The next thing that we did was we wanted to see as to how do we reduce barriers as much as possible? How do we make this easily accessible to our organization? Because we are such a large organization with many different teams involved and many different assets need to be created, we wanted to make sure that this product was positioned in the different tools that it naturally and organically would fit. So we did that assessment, we looked at the different, our different insights tools, and we were able to integrate this particular solution within our digital suite of insights tools, which we call ADA. And we made it accessible for all of the PepsiCo organization to be able to access. So we worked with BrainSuite to be able to develop a partnership, develop that license, so that we could have that democratization of this tool across the organization. The next thing that we did that we knew was very important for change management was we worked with BrainSuite to ensure that this tool fit within existing frameworks that our insights team, that our shopper marketing team are used to seeing, and also that it really matches with a lot of those best practices that I had mentioned at the beginning. We want to make sure that what we're doing with AI is really complementing all of the great work that PepsiCo has been doing over the last few years, but how do we make that consistent? How do we make sure that it's scalable? How do we make sure that our teams are actually able to really leverage this tool at scale? We worked with BrainSuite to make sure that all of their KPIs are really configured towards the 3R framework that we work across the organization and have our teams know very well. The next thing was working on the adoption plan. So we looked at all of our different stakeholders. We did a stakeholder analysis to really understand from leadership and understanding kind of who are going to be our main champions to the users, so that we could see how do we need to influence those individuals through videos, trainings, education, so that we can really bring them along in the process and helping to bring kind of champions up to highlight just how effective it's been for them to use the tool within their market. And then another thing that's incredibly important in working with technology and working with a large organization like PepsiCo is that we're constantly evolving, and we need to make sure that the tools that we're working with are also evolving with us. As we continue to grow, as we continue to develop even more best practices, as BrainSuite does as well, how do we continue to innovate together and make sure that we're really driving the same agenda forward? So this was another big area that we continue to focus on together. And ultimately, what did this mean? We were able to scale to all of our sectors within a few months, as I had mentioned. We now have hundreds of active users across the organization, and we have thousands of assets that have been evaluated using this tool. And ultimately, this is driving real impact for PepsiCo across the organization. And I will pass it back to Julia to take some questions and to learn more.
Yeah, actually, so if you want to learn more, for sure we are open to any questions right now. I think we have a couple of minutes left, but if you just want to grab a coffee, that's fine as well. So you can meet us at booth 10, just right next to the entrance, or just schedule a demo, learn more about how this might be also be interesting for you. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hey Sarah, we do have a question for you. So what attributes or what makes a successful partnership like this work? Like what would you be looking for at PepsiCo?
So there's a lot, right? So in terms of what we're looking for, right? Number one, it's always, does the solution fit the needs of the business? And we work really closely with the business, so we define exactly what that means, right? So we define very clear KPIs from the beginning so that we understand if we're going to hit or not hit those particular KPIs. So number one, it's always, does it fit the need? And then it's also trying to make sure that we have an organization that's flexible to work with PepsiCo and the nuances that a large company has, right? So we have a lot of teams, global teams, right? So having a team that can really scale and a technology that can really scale and that can fit to our needs is incredibly important. And Julia and the BrainSuite team have been absolutely incredible in working with PepsiCo, making sure that we're fitting to those nuances and we're making a solution that really fits in our organization. So I think that that's another element. And I think it's just in general that innovation agenda, making sure that we work hand in hand, understanding what the vision is of where we want to go at PepsiCo, and then how do we make sure that we're constantly improving so that we can get there. I don't know if Julia, if you have any other things, I mean, from your perspective, what makes a great partner from, you know, a large CPG or other?
Yeah, I think like a great partner always makes, like, if you have transparency and honesty and you get direct feedback. So for us, it was an absolutely great opportunity also to learn from all the teams across the globe. What are they need towards the platform and towards like their shopper marketing activities, and that you were so open, like, to share that with us. So we were completely included in the full adoption process, being always like side by side. I think that is actually key to a successful partnership.
I think one thing I didn't mention that's critical is also making sure that we have that governance from the beginning, right? So we introduced you to our leadership. We made sure that they were bought in. They understood the big opportunity that this had that we had here, and we worked together to make sure that we're executing everything hand in hand, continuous checkpoints with them, bringing them along throughout that process.
Good. Those are all the questions we have.
Amazing. Hey. Well, thank you all so much. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Nice job.